Rachel, you look exactly the same.
You don't get to say that to me. Not after 15 years of silence.
I wrote you a letter. Did you ever get it?
A letter? Now? That's convenient timing, Nicky.
I'm telling you the truth, whether you believe it or not.
By the end of this week, one of us walks away with a broken heart. And it's not going to be me again.
Rachel Mills could always tell what block of the city she was standing on with her eyes closed, and honestly, that little trick had built her whole business. Powdered sugar and chicory coffee near Jackson Square, Magnolia and Old Rain by the streetcar line. Somebody's gumbo simmering 3 doors down no matter what time of day it happened to be. You grow up in a city like that, and you either learn to bottle it or you learn to ignore it. She picked the first one. That was the whole secret behind her little perfume atelier. She noticed what everybody else walked straight past. At 9 in the morning, though, she wasn't in her workshop. She was in Maya's bedroom, a mouthful of pins, trying to get one stubborn curl to sit right against her best friend's temple. "You're shaking," Rachel said around the pins. "I'm getting married in 6 days." Maya's hands wouldn't sit still in her lap. "I'm allowed to shake." "You're allowed, just not while I'm holding something sharp near your face." Maya laughed, and for a second, the room felt exactly like every sleepover they'd had since they were 19 years old, back before either of them had a mortgage or a business, or a wedding 6 days out. Then her phone buzzed on the dresser, and something in her whole body shifted. "Grant's groomsman just landed," she said. "His best man's already at the house." "Which one's that?" "Nicky Fisher." Maya said it like it was nothing at all. It was not nothing at all. 15 years is supposed to be long enough for a name to lose its teeth. Turns out some names just learn patience. Rachel found out exactly how little patience hers had a few hours later, in the Garden District house Grant's family had rented out for the week, when she came around a corner with a garment bag over her arm and walked straight into him. He looked good. That was the first unfair thing about the whole day. Rachel Mills. He said her full name slow, like he was testing whether it still fit right in his mouth. "Nicky." She didn't offer a smile. "Didn't expect you here." "I'm the best man." A beat, almost amused. "Guess neither of us expected the other." Her face stayed perfectly still. Everything underneath it did not, and she hated him a little for making that so hard. "Well," she adjusted the garment bag. "Try not to make this week complicated." "Wouldn't dream of it," Nicky said, and something moved behind his eyes that she chose, very deliberately, not to go looking for. 15 years earlier. A backyard in Gentilly deep summer, the kind of heat that makes the air look wet. 14-year-old Rachel sat on an overturned bucket, watching a skinny boy fail spectacularly at fixing his own bike chain. "You're doing it wrong," she said. "You gonna help or just narrate?" She helped. And that right there is how most of the good ones start. Not with fireworks, just a busted bike chain and a boy looking up at you like you'd hung the moon. There's a very specific kind of politeness that isn't polite at all. It's a performance, dressed up in good manners, and Rachel discovered a real talent for it at that welcome dinner. String lights overhead, gumbo on the table, and somewhere in the middle of it, the art of being flawlessly courteous to a man while giving him absolutely nothing to work with. "Rachel makes perfume," Maya announced to the table, proud the way best friends get proud when they've had 2 glasses of wine. "Her own line, it's incredible. I'd love to smell it sometime," Nicky said. "I'm sure you'll survive without," Rachel said, and took a slow sip of wine like the conversation was already over. Grant laughed like it was a joke. It wasn't, not entirely, and Nicky's mouth twitched in a way that said he knew that too. Charm gets mistaken for confidence all the time, and the two rarely actually travel together. Half the guys who can make a whole table laugh are doing it, so nobody looks too closely at whatever's sitting quiet underneath. Ask anybody who's ever dated a comedian. A lot of the time, charm's just a good-looking front door with fresh paint on it, put there so nobody asks what's rotting in the back room. Later, at the edge of the courtyard, away from the noise, Nicky found her. You look good. Rach, really? Don't. Don't what? Do the voice, the one that makes it sound easy. She kept her eyes on the string lights instead of him. It was never easy. Not you leaving, not you just stopping, going quiet like that. Something crossed his face, there and gone fast. My dad. He caught the sentence before it finished and swallowed the rest whole. It's not what you think. I don't think anything, she said. I stopped thinking about it a long time ago. That particular lie is a classic, right up there with I'm fine and no, go ahead, I already ate. Neither of them bothered pretending it landed. Flashback. 15-year-old Nicky, sitting on his porch steps after his father's funeral, still wearing the too-big suit his uncle had bought him 2 days before. Rachel sat beside him without a word, just present, her shoulder against his, doing the one thing that actually helps at 15, showing up and staying quiet. You don't have to say anything, she'd told him. He hadn't. 3 weeks later, he was gone. People carry grudges the same way they carry keys, mostly without noticing, until one day something jingles in their pocket and reminds them it's still there. Rachel had been carrying hers for 15 years, and she still hadn't set it down when the dress fitting turned into a group outing through the quarter. Everybody wandering from shop to shop, eating beignets standing up because nobody wanted powdered sugar on their good clothes. She found herself, against every single instinct she owned, walking beside Nicky down Royal Street, while the others trailed ahead of them. Your uncle, she said finally, is he still around? Alive and stubborn as ever, taught me the whole business. A small real smile crossed his face, the first one she'd seen all week that wasn't performance. Everything I have, I owe to that man, honestly. That's good, she said, and meant it, even through gritted teeth. He glanced sideways at her. You hate that I'm not the same idiot who couldn't fix a bike chain. I don't hate anything about you. A pause, one beat too long. That's not true. I hate that you never called. You've had that moment maybe where a sentence you've been holding for 15 years finally slips its leash, and you end up more shocked than the person standing there listening to it. Nicky stopped walking. I wrote you a letter, he said. Once. My uncle was supposed to mail it. Rachel's stomach turned over slow, like a key finally working in a lock that hadn't budged in years. I never got a letter. Neither one of them said another word. The powdered sugar sitting on the pavement between them suddenly looked like the least important thing on Royal Street. 15 years of silence has a way of doing that, making everything else in the room shrink down to nothing. Flashback. A younger Nicky in his uncle's cramped Baton Rouge apartment, sealing an envelope with Rachel's name written across the front, sliding it across a kitchen table scarred from years of use. Can you mail this for me? His uncle nodded, tired and grief-heavy, mind somewhere else entirely. The envelope slid into a stack of unopened mail, the kind that piles up in a house where nobody's had the strength to open anything in weeks, and sat there, forgotten, for 2 years nobody could get back. Rachel had already decided to dislike her. That decision lasted about 4 minutes. Her name was Denise, and she laughed easy, asked real questions about the atelier and actually remembered the answers, which, let's be honest, puts her ahead of 90% of people you meet at a rehearsal lunch. She held Nicky's hand like it was just a habit, built on real fondness, nothing performed about it. Rachel watched the two of them across the table and felt something rise up in her chest that wasn't triumph and wasn't relief either. Mostly guilt. And underneath the guilt, something sharper she had zero interest in naming out loud. She's lovely, Rachel told Maya afterward, and it came out sounding more like a confession than a compliment. She is, Maya agreed carefully, studying her friend's face the way only a best friend of 15 years knows how to. Rach, what's going on with you and Nicky? Nothing. The word shot out too fast to be believed. Nothing is doing a whole lot of heavy lifting in that sentence, and everybody in earshot knew it. People only defend nothing that hard when it's actually something they're working overtime not to feel. That evening, Nicky found her alone on the back gallery, a glass of wine gone warm and forgotten in her hand. I saw your face today, he said, at lunch. I don't know what you're talking about. Rachel, Just her name, gentler than she could stand to hear. I'm not proud of a lot of things, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend I don't finish that sentence. Too sharp, too fast, both at once. You're engaged, practically. You don't get to almost finish that sentence, Nicky. He didn't argue back. He just looked at her the way he used to look at a busted bike chain he hadn't figured out yet, and walked back inside without another word. Flashback. 16-year-old Rachel, months after Nicky vanished, sitting alone on the same porch steps, the house already sold, strangers already moving boxes in. She didn't cry. She just sat there a long while, teaching herself the particular, unglamorous discipline of getting up anyway. Let me tell you something about the night before a wedding. Nobody sleeps right, and the ones who can't sleep at all end up finding each other in the kitchen at 2 in the morning, whether they meant to or not. The house had finally gone quiet. Everybody wrung out from rehearsal, from wine, from performing joy all day for a couple who genuinely deserved every bit of it. Rachel couldn't sleep. She found the kitchen dark except for the stove light, and Nicky already sitting there, 2 glasses of water on the counter, like some part of him had known she was coming before she did. Couldn't sleep either, he said. Not really a question. No. They sat at the counter a while without talking, the ceiling fan turning slow overhead. It was the first easy silence the two of them had shared in 15 years, and neither one wanted to be the first to break it. I looked for you, Nicky said eventually. For a while. I wasn't hiding. I know, I just didn't know how to show up as the person I'd turned into. He exhaled hard, like the next part cost him something to say out loud. Grief does things to a person. I went through some stuff. Treatment. Took longer than I want to admit, honestly, before I was somebody worth writing back to. Maybe you know what that's like. Hearing finally the exact sentence you needed 15 years ago. It doesn't undo the weight. It just quietly changes what the weight was actually for. Rachel's hand sat inches from his on the counter. Neither of them moved it an inch closer, and neither of them moved it away either. I need to go to bed, she said, standing up too fast. Rachel, I can't do this the night before your best friend's wedding. Nicky, I can't do this while you're... She gestured vaguely, meaning Denise, meaning everything at once. I just can't. She left before he could answer her. In the doorway, she stopped for 1 second, back still turned to him, and neither of them said the thing they both already knew was true. Flashback. The two of them at 15, slow dancing badly in Nicky's living room to some song on the radio, laughing at how terrible they both were at it. His hands too careful on her waist, like she was something he hadn't figured out how to hold on to yet. Maya and Grant got married at golden hour, in a courtyard dripping with jasmine, and if this city had ever put on anything more beautiful, Rachel hadn't seen it. She stood up beside her best friend and managed not to look at the best man once during the whole ceremony, which took a lot more effort than anybody watching could have guessed just from her face. The reception blurred by after that. Toasts, gumbo, a brass band that got even the elderly relatives up and moving. And then, because tradition demanded it, the maid of honor and the best man got called out onto the floor together. Nicky's hand found hers properly for the first time in 15 years, and Rachel felt it in her whole chest before she felt it anywhere else. You don't have to talk, he said, low, just for her. Good, because I don't know what I'd say. They moved slower than the song asked for. All around them, people laughed and spun and lived their own separate evenings, and for the length of one dance, the two of them existed only inside this one, hands and breath, and 15 years finally standing still in the same place at the same time. I never stopped, Nicky said, so quiet it was almost just breath against her hair. Not for one single day of 15 years. Rachel looked up at him. Really looked the way she'd spent the whole week refusing to, and every wall she'd built came down at once, the way things do when they've been cracking a long time, and nobody was watching closely enough to notice. I hated you, she whispered, and her voice shook doing it. For so long. I hated you because I never stopped either. He kissed her. It landed careful and certain both at once. 15 years of an answer somebody had finally worked up the nerve to say out loud. Her hand found the front of his jacket without asking her permission first, For one whole unguarded moment, the entire courtyard, the band, the guests, Denise somewhere near the bar, simply stopped existing. Bodies are honest a long time before people ever get around to being honest, and every single person on that dance floor just watched two of them finally stop arguing with what they wanted. Then someone gasped, close enough to hear. They broke apart. Denise was standing 6 feet away, hand pressed over her mouth, and every bit of color went straight out of Nicky's face. Rachel didn't run, though every nerve in her body was telling her to. She stood frozen in the middle of the dance floor while Denise turned and walked fast toward the house, and Nicky started after her, then stopped cold, caught between two directions with no good one left standing. "Go," Rachel said. "Go talk to her." "Rachel." "Go, Nicky." He went. Rachel stood alone at the edge of the party, shaking now that nobody was there to hold her steady, until a voice she barely recognized spoke up beside her. "You're Rachel." An older man, silver at the temples, kind eyes that looked painfully familiar in a way she couldn't quite place. "I'm Robert, Nicky's uncle." "I know who you are." "He never forgave himself," Robert said. No preamble at all, like he'd been waiting 15 years to say exactly this to exactly her. "That letter he wrote you, I had it. I lost a good chunk of that year to my own grief after my brother died, and things slipped through my hands I should have protected better. That letter sat in a drawer 2 full years before I even found it again, and by then I didn't know how to explain the delay, so I just didn't send it at all. That's on me, Rachel, not him. Our grief does that to a house sometimes. It doesn't just take the person you lost, it takes whole years nobody gets back, and things fall through cracks that never should have been there in the first place. Imagine carrying blame for 15 years for something you never actually did, only to find out, at your best friend's wedding of all places on earth, that it was never yours to carry. He went through hell that year," Robert went on. "Wouldn't eat right, wouldn't talk much. I got him into treatment because I was scared stiff of what might happen if I didn't. Took 2 years before he was really back. By then he figured too much time had gone by, figured you'd moved on, and that you deserved to have moved on. A pause heavy as anything. He spent 15 years building a life he thought might make up for the boy who never called. Never once occurred to him the only thing you ever actually wanted was the call itself." Rachel pressed a hand to her mouth, 15 years rearranging themselves all at once behind her eyes. "He still loves you," Robert said simply. "I've watched that man build an entire empire with steady hands. I have never once, not one time, seen those hands shake the way they do whenever you walk into a room." Rachel found them near the gate. Nicky and Denise mid-conversation, Denise's face wet but her voice steadier than her face had any right to be. "I already knew," Denise was saying as Rachel got close enough to hear. "Nicky, I've known for months you were somewhere else, even standing right in front of me." She wiped her face, but the tears weren't the whole story. There was real anger underneath them too, and she didn't bother hiding it. "You don't get to just decide that now in the middle of my best friend's wedding, like it's some kind of movie moment. I gave you 2 years. Denise, I know." "Do you, though?" She turned to face him fully, arms crossed. "Because from where I'm standing, you're about to blow up your whole life for someone you dated as a teenager. That's not romantic, Nicky. That's a crisis with better lighting. Say what you want about her. But the woman doesn't miss." Nicky didn't flinch. "You're not wrong to be angry. I know I'm not wrong." Denise looked past him at Rachel for the first time, and there was nothing soft in that look, just a long, appraising once-over, the kind one woman gives another when she's deciding exactly how much to say. "You'd better be worth this, because I watched him build a whole company out of showing up on time, keeping his word, doing things the right way. And now he's standing here about to throw a wedding week U-turn on a woman he hasn't spoken to in 15 years. Denise!" Nicky's voice dropped, quiet. "I'm not asking you to understand it tonight." "Good, because I don't." She let out a breath that had a little laugh trapped somewhere inside it, tired more than cruel. "But I'm not going to stand here and beg a man to stay who already left the building in his head. I did that once with somebody else. Never again." She looked back at Rachel one last time. "Don't waste him. If you do, I want it on record that I said so first." She walked off toward the house, spine straight, heels loud on the gravel, not defeated, just done, and making sure everyone within earshot knew the difference. Every guest who'd caught the kiss earlier was still watching, completely unashamed, from various corners of the courtyard. Weddings are basically small towns for one night. Everybody knows everybody's business by dessert, and half of them are already texting about it. Nicky barely seemed to notice. "I talked to your uncle," Rachel said. "I know. I saw him find you." Nicky stepped closer, Denise's words clearly still sitting somewhere behind his eyes. "I need to say something before you say anything else." Rachel's voice shook, but she didn't stop. "I spent 15 years telling myself you left because you wanted to, that you got out and never looked back, and I was just collateral, something you outgrew." She pressed a hand to her chest like she could physically hold the next part in place. "I've been carrying that like it was fact, like it was the one true thing I knew about you, and it wasn't true, not one word of it." "Rachel, let me finish." A breath, unsteady. "You didn't leave me. Grief took you, and then silence took the rest, and none of that was ever a choice you made against me. I need you to know I understand that now. Really understand it, not just hear it and nod. That's the kind of weight that doesn't announce itself when it lifts. It just goes quiet all at once, like a held breath finally let go." She looked at him, and for the first time all week, there was nothing guarded left in her face at all. "I never stopped loving you either, Nicky. Not for one day of the 15 years I spent pretending otherwise. I built an entire business out of chasing smells that reminded me of you, and told myself it was a coincidence every single time." A small, wrecked laugh. "It was never a coincidence." Nicky's jaw tightened, emotion moving fast under the surface. "I need you to hear this in front of every single person who just watched that conversation with Denise happen," he said. "I've loved you since I was 14 years old and didn't even know what to call it yet. I loved you through every year I was too ashamed to pick up a phone. She's right that this looks reckless. I don't care. I'm done being careful with something this important. Being careful and being safe get mixed up all the time, and they are not the same thing at all. Every so often somebody figures that out at exactly the wrong moment, or exactly the right one, in front of an entire wedding party that will not stop staring." "I'm terrified," Rachel admitted, voice cracking clean down the middle. "Even knowing the truth now, you still proved a person can disappear. And Denise just proved you can hurt someone good without meaning to. I know, I'm not asking you to pretend either one of those things didn't just happen." He took her hand, steady despite everything his uncle had said about how it only shook around her. "I'm asking for the chance to show up instead. To you, and honestly, to earn back some of what I just cost her too, every single day, for as long as you'll have me." She kissed him that time. In front of the band, the guests, her best friend's entire wedding, in front of 15 years of silence finally, thoroughly done being silent. 8 months is long enough for a lot of things to settle, and it was long enough for this. Rachel stood at her workbench with a new bottle in her hand, unlabeled, holding a scent she'd been chasing for weeks, without quite admitting why, cedar and rain, and something warm underneath it all like a porch step in the thick of summer. Nicky leaned in the doorway of the atelier, watching her work the way he used to watch her fix his bike chain all those years ago, like she was solving something enormous with her hands. Some people never lose that look, the one that says they still can't quite believe they get to stay and watch. "What's this one called?" he asked. Rachel held the bottle up to the light, turning it slow, considering. 14, she said. He crossed the room without a word, took the bottle gently from her hand, and set it down on the workbench like it could wait. Some things, the important ones, don't need to be said twice for you to know they're true. He tilted her chin up with 2 fingers, and the kiss that followed had none of the desperation of the one on the dance floor 8 months back. Just certainty, slow and unhurried, the kind that comes from 2 people who already know exactly how the rest of the story goes. 15 years, he murmured against her forehead, and you're still the only thing I've ever gotten right on the first try. You didn't get me on the first try, she reminded him, smiling into his shoulder. You got me on the second, that's the whole point. He laughed, the real one, the one that had taken 15 years to make it all the way back to his face, and pulled her closer. "I like it already," he said, meaning the perfume, meaning her, meaning all of it at once, and stepped inside, closing the door behind him. And that's how 15 years of silence finally turned into a second chance. Now I want to hear from you. If you were in Rachel's shoes, would you have forgiven him that easily? Or would 15 years of silence have been too much, even knowing the truth? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story, do me a favor and hit that like button. It costs you nothing, but it means everything for this channel. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, because we drop a brand new story every single week. And trust me, you don't want to miss the next one. And if you really want to go the extra mile, these stories take a lot of time and heart to put together. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, there's a Ko-fi link right down in the description. Even a small donation means the world to me and helps keep these stories coming. No pressure at all, just know it's there if you ever feel like it. Thank you so much for watching until the end. I'll see you in the next story.